By the end of today's episode, you'll know why some acting classes are a waste of money and how to avoid classes and coaches who might actually make you worse. Welcome to the Actor's Career Compass, where we help aspiring screen actors find high-quality auditions, sign with great agents, and book major roles in legit productions. I'm your host, Martin Benson, and today we'll be taking a good hard look at acting classes and coaches. We won't be discussing specific ones, just what to look for when considering whether a class or an acting coach would be a good investment. Some of what we're going to cover includes how to find the right classes and coaches that can actually help you get better, why taking too many classes can actually make you worse as an actor, and specifically what to avoid when considering classes or acting coaches. So, first off, the best way to find a good class or coach is to be specific about what you're trying to improve. Rather than just taking any random acting class, you should think about what kind of projects do you want to be in. Are you looking to do musical theater, film acting, television, commercials? There's different classes for different specialties, and joining some multi-month program that focuses on everything might not actually help you. And this is because even if you learn amazing information in that program, you're likely to forget a lot of it by the time you're ready to use it. For example, if your major goal is to book more film and TV acting work, but you take an accent course, unless you primarily focus on getting auditions that require that specific accent, by the time you're ready to actually use the accent on something that you book, you may have forgotten how to do it properly and you'll need to take refresher courses. So this is why I recommend that you get really specific. The next thing that I recommend is to audit the class if you're allowed, right? So some teachers, they might charge a small fee, but in general, it's usually okay to sit in and watch how the teacher works with students so you can get an idea of how they coach. And this will be helpful for you to figure out whether they're going to be a good fit for you. Acting is obviously very much an art, unlike science, meaning that there's no one-size-fits-all approach. For instance, with math, 1 + 1 = 2, and it doesn't really require you to get along with the teacher very well to learn that. But in acting, where you're getting critiqued and you're learning to control your emotions, it's very different. So it's really good to have good rapport with the instructor and get a sense of how they work and what their personality is like so that you know that they're going to be a good fit for you before you sign up with them. Now, another thing to consider is reviews and testimonials. So obviously you want to look them up online. You can also see whether any of their students have had success stories or have at least been in legitimate SAG-AFTRA level productions, right? It's a good sign if they have. Their students don't need to be famous megastars, since that's super rare, but they should at least be in some legit television or streaming shows so that you know that what they teach is good enough to be booked by the people that you want to be booked by, meaning casting directors. Now, I've had some clients I've worked with in the past who have asked me, hey, Martin, I'm considering signing up for this acting program for the next 3 months. But these students had just signed up with me for coaching. I usually advise against taking multiple classes at the same time. Like, for instance, working with me while also doing another 3-month acting program. And this is because over and over again, I've heard how classes can conflict with one another. And you see it because things might just confuse you. Like you might learn something from one acting coach that sort of goes against what another acting coach teaches. Honestly, one of the major issues that I have with a lot of acting classes and even some coaches is that they focus on the how rather than the why. For instance, they focus on how you should act, or in other words, what you should be doing. So, should you slow down? Should you increase eye contact? And of course, while those things matter, especially when you're working with a director who might ask you to do those specific things at specific moments, The fact is that focusing on your natural instinct, just responding naturally to cues in the scene, can often create more spontaneous and authentic performances. So for that reason, I usually recommend focusing on the why, or at least looking for acting classes and coaches who focus on the why a lot. So this is your intention as an actor. Why am I saying this? Why am I doing this? Right? By getting clear on that, everything else can come much more naturally and easily. And for this reason, again, taking too many classes at once can actually make you worse as an actor. You'll get information overload and conflicting advice, which can confuse you. And some actors can even become over-reliant on classes or coaches and start to fear making choices themselves. This leads them to become what one of my clients called a classroom actor, or someone who only acts in class and rarely, if ever, gets paid for their acting ability. I'd like to start to wrap things up here with just a few things to specifically look out for, or red flags that can help you avoiding signing up with the wrong coach or class. Okay, so number one is coaches who won't critique you honestly. There are a lot of coaches, unfortunately, who will give very vague feedback like, oh, that was amazing, great job. Next time, just try it a little slower. Right? They'll only give very simplistic, straightforward, what's called result direction feedback, where they ask you to do it a specific way, again, focusing on the how rather than the why. And they're always telling you how good it was, making you feel really confident in your acting ability, basically more confident than you should be. And the problem is then when you go to submit to real auditions, or you try to get an agent, you never hear back from these projects or from these agents you reach out to. And you wonder why. You think you're really good because of all this positive feedback that you've gotten, and yet nobody in the industry is responding to you. And so that is one of the first red flags to look for, is coaches who are overly positive with their critiques and don't give detailed why-based feedback. Another thing to watch out for is very large classes where you're not going to get a lot of attention. So generally speaking, the more time that you have to act and get direct feedback from a coach, the better you're going to become. Obviously, assuming the coach or teacher knows what they're doing. Now, I usually recommend avoiding classes that are much bigger than 15 to 20 people. More ideally, the class should be even smaller, like just 5 or 10 people. Finally, the third thing that I recommend to watch out for is a coach who won't show you how to analyze and critique yourself. Many coaches and teachers can give feedback without explaining why their feedback matters and how they came to that feedback. They're not going to explain contextually why certain feedback or notes like slowing down applies to one scene but not to another. And it's this lack of explanation that is actually purposefully built into their coaching program or their classes in order to keep you dependent on them. So you want to make sure that your coach is willing to teach you how to analyze and coach yourself so that you understand why they're giving you the feedback that you do. Because while of course you can hire them whenever you need them in the future, you don't want to be absolutely dependent upon that person forever. Okay? So thanks for listening. Now, if you want to dive even deeper on acting technique, I highly recommend checking out my podcast called How to Know If Your Acting is Really Good Enough to Book SAG-AFTRA Auditions, which is episode number 84. You're going to learn a ton, and you're going to have a much better understanding of what bigger casting directors and agents really want to see when it comes to your acting ability. Check it out. Again, it's episode number 84, How to Know If Your Acting is Really Good Enough to Book SAG-AFTRA Auditions on the Actor's Career Compass. Finally, if you'd like to get some personalized advice, I'd love to hop on a quick Zoom call with you. I can take a look at where you are, what you're struggling with, and help you figure out the best next steps to take. We can see if one of my one-to-one coaching programs might be a good fit for you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. So whenever you're ready, just visit martinbenson.com. That's MartinBenTsen. So you could go to martinbenson.com and you can set it up. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.